Welcome to the Inspired by Her Story podcast. I'm your host, Caitlin Casso, travel and brand photographer and the founder of Caitlin Casso Creations, where I share other women's stories through my photographs and now this podcast. Inspired by Her Story is a podcast dedicated to inspiring, motivating, encouraging, and empowering women to get out of their comfort zones and follow their dreams. Whether it's owning their own business, experiencing something new, or making a major life change, I want to encourage other women to follow their dreams and live their lives to the fullest. Throughout this podcast, I will be sharing my own stories and those of inspirational women with hopes to let souls connect and adventures to unwind. Follow along as I take you with me during my travels, experiences, and encounters with these amazing women. On today's episode of Inspired by Her Story is a segment I call Casey Chats, where I talk about my own personal experiences or thoughts on getting out of my comfort zone. Whether it's stories from my travels, building my own business, or just life experiences, I hope my stories can truly inspire you to get out of your comfort zone and live your life to the fullest. Welcome to a segment I like to call Casey Chats. In this, I am not interviewing anyone else. It is just me and my thoughts that I like to share with everyone, whether it's, something motivating and inspiration that I've just come across or experiences that I have actually gone through that I want to share with you rather than sharing somebody else's experiences. So actually, today's chat, we're going to talk about making your dreams come true one step at a time. With this, I am going to talk about my recent trip to Costa Rica, where I was able to photograph a international yoga retreat. So actually, a year ago, I made it a goal of mine to come across an opportunity like this. I really got into yoga last year, kind of came in the perfect time of my life when I needed a little more peace of mind. I've always been really into health and fitness for most of my life, but I never really got into yoga before because I always felt like if I was working out, I had to, be dripping sweat and lifting weights or moving my body really fast. I didn't feel like yoga was a workout. But then a year ago, I kind of came in perfect timing when I was going through some difficult times in life, and yoga was able to really give me that peace of mind. To me, it's more, besides stretching and really focusing on my movements, it's also more of a mental workout, I guess you'd say. I have always wanted to travel internationally as much as possible. And one of my first thoughts was, hey, wouldn't it be awesome to go to a yoga retreat and have the opportunity to photograph it for the yoga instructor? Like, that would be amazing. It's a different way to kind of absorb that experience. So I reached out to a bunch of people last year, tried to get them to consider me. But of course, the first things I Google are really big companies, and that's really hard to get into, especially when you don't have the portfolio yet of taking photographs of yoga retreats. But I didn't let that, hold me back. So this past year, I actually reached out to my own yoga instructor, who I ended up getting really close to this year. Shout out to Kim Marie. She's amazing. We really started building on our relationship a lot, and she was hosting a weekend yoga retreat this past March. And so I reached out to her and I said, hey, I'd love to be able to photograph your retreat for you. Like, I always saw she was posting on her Instagram pages, her Facebook pages of photos of her from previous retreats. So I wanted to be able to offer her the opportunity as well to be able to have pictures for her portfolio while it was also helping mine as well. So long story short, we ended up working together, and I was able to spend the whole weekend there at the retreat, participate in whatever I can, but also take photos as well of her teaching the classes, doing like a photo shoot session with her, just, in different yoga poses, photographing the events that were going on during it, everything. It was such a great experience. So we talked before that about the fact that I was really interested in, photographing an international yoga retreat, because I've seen that she's hosted her own as well in the past. And so it was actually, I believe, just a couple weeks after her retreat, she forwarded me an email of someone looking for a photographer for their retreat in Costa Rica this June. So she sent that over to me. And of course, now I had, my portfolio built with her photographs. And I sent them over to the yoga instructor that was looking. And she was interested. She liked the fact that, not only was I into yoga, but I was also into adventure and landscape photography and everything too. And she wanted me to do it. So it ended up working out perfect. I still can't believe how fast it all happened. I believe I reached out to Kim Marie in February, took her photos in March, and then literally 2 weeks after that, I was already booking a trip to Costa Rica to now follow my dreams. It's crazy how fast this can happen. You just have to roll with it. So I actually just came back from Costa Rica a few days ago from photographing it. It was such an amazing experience. I still can't believe it all happened, but I wanted to kind of use this time to really bring my thoughts together on the retreat and share how, if you have certain dreams that you'd like to follow, you just really need to take it one step at a time in order to get there, and you will. So for example, with this, I made this goal a year ago and already completed it. And I didn't even expect to complete it until maybe the end of this year I was hoping for. But it all came in perfect timing. And I think that's something to know as well. You can't rush into things. You can't force things to happen. You just have to set that goal and that dream, work on whatever small steps you can in order to get there. And then the universe will work in your favor and it will happen when it's supposed to happen. And for me, it happened in perfect timing. At this retreat, I was lucky enough where I was able to also participate in the event, but then take photos during it as well. So it made it really easy because the instructor, Megan, she's actually from Ocean City, Maryland, and she had specific photos in mind that she wanted me to take. So there was no extra added pressure of feeling like I had to photograph every single thing going on. But there were certain yoga sessions that she had me sit out of and photograph instead so that we could capture photos of her teaching the class. Something that she does that I absolutely loved was going around to each person and making corrections on their form and really helping them get into the poses properly. And so I took the opportunity to take photos of her actually doing that. So then she could use that for her own marketing as well and show that that's something she specializes in. And man, as the person getting fixed, it is like exactly what I needed. It's crazy how like just a few adjustments and you're like, oh, that's how it's supposed to feel. It's awesome. So outside of the yoga photo shoots, I did the same thing that I did with Kim Marie. Took her aside during one of our downtimes and just had her in certain yoga poses flowing through them so that we can take those as well. And then she also does this really cool thing called a sound ceremony, where there's different musical instruments that you use in order to create sounds that are supposed to, like the participants just lay there in silence, close your eyes, wears like a mask or something over your eyes so that you don't even see any sort of daylight, and just absorb the sounds and just see what happens from there. Sometimes different thoughts can come back to you, memories can come back to you, anything. And it's crazy how the sounds that she's creating will kind of help you come across those thoughts or those memories. There was one time where everybody ended up saying how they almost felt a little dark inside or scared or sad. And once one person said that and then the next person said that, then Megan kind of giggles a little and was like, that's kind of what I was going for. So it was really cool participating in the sound ceremony. But luckily, she wanted me to participate in it. So we did a little photo shoot outside of that so that I could show her doing the sound ceremony, but where I could also participate at the same time. That was the goal of the trip, was to be able to take all of these photos for Megan. And that was awesome. You know, it's helping her, it's helping me. It's such a great experience. But outside of that, I wanted to talk a little bit more about, you know, taking these opportunities and turning it into even a bigger opportunity of yours. I knew I was going to Costa Rica. And of course, what's the first thing you think of with Costa Rica? Like beaches, jungle, like I'm a landscape photographer as well. And so of course I'm going to jump on the opportunity of taking as many photos as I can with that. But I also took advantage of this and made sure that I could take photos for the rest of my brand as well. One of them being real estate. So I really dug into photography from the beginning with real estate photos because of my old job that I worked at. And so that used to be more my specialty, but of course I've kind of changed my path a little bit with my brand. But I still wanted to take advantage of being in this beautiful place, staying at this beautiful resort in the middle of the jungle. Like, who knows when else I'll get to do that? I had to photograph that. So I actually worked with some of the workers on the resort, and they let me into 3 different rooms at the resort that were not being occupied at the time so that I could photograph them. Not only the rooms, but I also even photographed like all the amenities and everything. So now I have those pictures to work with, and I can have that on my portfolio. So in case if any other opportunities come across in the future where maybe I could take photos of a different hotel or a resort, and maybe I could stay there for free then because I could take photos for them. You never know what could come out of it. So I'm so happy that I took advantage of that situation. And then even outside of that, one of my friends, Alex, she is an online fitness coach, which I'll definitely be interviewing for a future podcast. She attended the retreat with me. She's not just a friend of mine, but she's also a client of mine. We already had a booking for a photo shoot with her in a fitness center back home. And before we left for Costa Rica, I messaged her and I was like, hey, I really think we should take advantage of the fact that we're in Costa Rica and let's book a photo shoot of you there as well. Like, let's get you in workout clothes. We can have some lifestyle pictures, bring some dresses. We could put you in the garden and take some really cute pictures of you there too. We ended up even doing some bathing suit pictures by the pool, like whatever we can do to utilize where we were, because when else are you going to get epic pictures like that for her own brand? And she was totally for it. She was so excited. And we ended up having such a blast taking photos at the resort for her brand. And it just worked out so perfect because she's already one of my clients. And now we're both able to take advantage of this situation and use this beautiful place that we are staying in. Why limit yourself to only taking photos like that when you're home? Heck no. I am a travel and brand photographer. My goal is to take photos both at home and traveling for my brand. And this was working out perfectly. It's so crazy. That was an awesome time being able to do that with her. And then, of course, I was taking my normal, landscape photos for myself and my own portfolio of the resort. And then we went to the beach one day, so I took some pictures there as well. And then I was, taking advantage again, being there and making sure to constantly post on my Instagram story of my trip. I want to be kind of like an Instagram vlogger. So I feel like it's important to constantly show what I'm doing every day to my followers. And especially while traveling, I have to stay on top of that. So I made sure every day to get on there in the morning and say what our plans were for the day. Or the first day we were there, I made sure to bring everyone on tour of the resort to see exactly where I was staying and what the whole deal was. And I think that's important because once you build those followers, you can't just stop when you go away. You need to take them along with you. And then my favorite part, which I am so excited. Now, this is something I didn't plan on before going because it's kind of impossible to plan. But one of my goals for my company is while traveling, I want to travel the world as much as possible. And while traveling, I want to meet people wherever I am. It's especially when traveling internationally, it's so cool hearing people's stories and hearing more about how they live each day because they're living in a different culture than we are. And so to hear their day-to-day experiences or even just past life experiences is just so cool to hear. One of the things I want to do is when I'm traveling is to not only document what I'm going through in that moment, but to also meet these people who have amazing stories and be able to share them with the world. It's one thing to share my own stories, but to share theirs is just a whole nother level. So I've had this dream for a while, and I think it's a perfect way to make everything blend together, my travel and my brand photography together. It really merges the two. But of course, it's something you can't plan on. You could only hope that you meet people that have cool stories, and then you just have to go with the flow. I did not expect this to happen during this trip, especially because I knew we were staying at a resort. I was a part of like a retreat group that was from the United States. So who knows how I would meet someone else. And even when we were there, we were actually like the only people there. There was only the first night, there was like a couple there and that was it. Who would have thought that this would happen? But it did. We ended up one of the days going on a hike to a waterfall, which was really cool. And during the hike, one of the volunteers at the resort, because they have people who work there every day, they're employees of the resort, but then they also had 4 volunteers there as well. And so one of the volunteers had not gone on this hike before, so she joined us. And so I was talking to her. Her name is Thais. As I'm talking to her for some bit, come to find out, her and her husband are currently traveling the world. So they are originally from Brazil, and they quit their full-time jobs to travel the world and just see what happens. Just really experience it. I could have talked to her for hours. When we were on our hike, I just wanted to keep talking and finding out more about her story. I was so intrigued and so just drawn into her story. That's always been something that I've kind of dreamed of doing, but now I'm kind of taking it a different way right now with my company, so we'll see what happens. But I was so intrigued. I just kept asking her question after question. I wanted to know how she started and where they're going, what they're doing. So I had this great conversation with her. And then after our hike, I was thinking, and I was like, Caitlin, you need to push yourself out of your comfort zone, and you need to ask her if she would be on your podcast. And this was the first time of me doing, especially doing it with a stranger that I've never met before, or, I just met for the first time. I wanted to make sure that I, approached her in the right way, explained what I'm doing for my company, and see if she would be willing to do my podcast with me. I'm a person that likes to plan everything out. So this was kind of also just being thrown in there. So I had to hope that it would work and find time in order to do it. But I felt like it was so worth it. Of course I had the thoughts in my head. I was like, well, maybe I can, call her when I get home. We could schedule a time and plan it, and we could do it over the phone. And then I was like, Caitlin, no, you need to do it now. This is the perfect time. If you don't do it now, it might not happen. I made myself get out of my comfort zone, went over to her, asked her if she would record a podcast with me that day. And she is so absolutely sweet. She is literally one of the sweetest people I have met. So of course she was all for it. And she was so happy that I asked her. So excited to hear what I'm doing with my brand. So she was just so sweet. It was such a great experience. So we recorded that podcast. And it was so fun. We sat outside, we have the birds in the background, whatever other jungle animals surrounded us. It was so great for even me to just hear her experience even more and be able to ask such detailed questions and be able to share her story with everyone else, because I'm most likely not the only person who's considered doing that or that finds it interesting and inspiring. That's the whole point of my brand, is to inspire, motivate, encourage, empower women to get out of their comfort zones and follow their dreams or do things that they've always wanted to try to do. As soon as I started hearing her story in Costa Rica, I felt all of that. So if I felt that instantly, then that was just a sign that I had to share that with everyone else. Why would I not? Why would I not take advantage of this situation? I still just can't believe that I met her and it worked so perfectly. Just looking back on this whole trip, it was literally the perfect work trip for myself. Being able to merge the two things together that I am currently building with Caitlin Casso Creations of travel photography and brand photography, it just merged so well together with all of the photos I was able to take, my landscape photos, the yoga photos, the online fitness coach photos, and then also having this podcast with Thais talking about her travels. So it's not even just showcasing my own travels in Costa Rica, but then hers. Like, this whole trip was literally the perfect mix of everything I'm looking to build in my brand. And I can't help but constantly reminisce on that and just soak it all in and just feel really excited about it. I have to say, just thinking about it makes me realize that, okay, that's it. My dreams are coming true. I mean, I guess it already did come true for one trip. So that only means that this is possible. Everything I'm trying to build for my brand right now is 100% possible because it already happened once. So if it already happened for this time, then it's just going to keep happening. It's all about taking one step at a time. I set that dream a year ago, and that was just one part of the dream. And then as the year continued and I started building more and more into my brand, more goals that I was setting, I was able to add all of those into this original dream that I had and just build it even more. I feel like how many things I get out of it? 5, 6, something crazy like that. Literally, it started from a dream of just photographing an international yoga retreat. And now so many things came out of it. I am so excited to continue to share that with everyone. And I just wanted to use this as an opportunity to let people know that you can make your dreams come true, even if it's just one step at a time. There's no reason to rush things. There's no reason to force things. That's one thing that I especially noticed this past year, is that you can't force things to happen, because they will happen when they are meant to happen, or even if they're meant to happen. Sometimes things just aren't supposed to happen, and you need to change your goals, or you need to change your strategies. If you're forcing it, you're going to have a hard time realizing that and finding a different plan. So you just have to go with the flow. You got to take it one step at a time. As long as you have your overall dream that you're thinking about, things will gradually happen. I think that you need to be open to everything, open to opportunities. If you're open-minded about something in the first place, then opportunities will just start flowing. They'll just come to you gradually, and sometimes you won't even realize it, or you'll look at it and be like, holy crap, how did that all work out? And it's because you were so open-minded that it gave you the ability, or I guess the ability to accept it and for it to just fall into place. I hope hearing my story about everything that happened for my Costa Rica trip will encourage you and make you realize that even if you feel like your dreams seem really far away, they might not be that far, but just take it one step at a time. Even if I didn't do this weekend yoga retreat with my yoga instructor, if I never reached out to her in the first place to do that, I would not have had this whole experience, and it all just fell together so perfectly. So you got to step out of that comfort zone. You got to ask for help. You got to ask people if they would be interested in working with you. People aren't always going to come to you. You need to get out there, put yourself out there, get out of your comfort zone, roll with the punches, see what happens. And so that's all for today. I can't wait to share some more podcasts similar to this. Lots more to come. Thanks again for listening to the Inspired by Her Story podcast. I hope you found some inspiration, motivation, encouragement, and empowerment to get out of your comfort zone and live your life to the fullest. Make sure to hit subscribe, share with a friend, and take these stories with you to make the changes in your life that you've been looking for. Follow me on Instagram at Caitlin Casso, and even check out my work at CaitlinCasso.com. Stay tuned for the next Inspired by Her Story episode.